Do any of you guys get social media accounts? And it seems like the more people you reach, the more people that start to follow you, the less they actually see it. It makes sense. They want you to pay to reach your own people on a page that you grew. Kind of defeats the purpose, right? And then we've got the fact checkers. There's certain things you can't talk about, which can make it very hard to connect with your audience when you've got a certain subject. And let's not even get into the algorithms. Those things make absolutely no sense. Then you go online, you're looking at something, the next thing you've got to ad for it on your page. That's what we know as big tech right now. I wish there was an alternative. Guess what? There is. It's called Clout Hub. Clout Hub protects your right to free speech. They do not sell your data, and they protect your right to get in there and want you to build your audience. There is none of those funny algorithms on there. You can get this right now for free on Apple and Google Play stores, and you can also get it on your desktop. This is what we call social media. It's social media done right. When in doubt, get some clout. Welcome to Dad Talk Today. My name is Eric Carroll, and we have an amazing show lined up for you. We are fighting for fathers all across the United States and all across the world where you can be glad to be dad. Stick around, guys. Dad Talk Today is about to begin. Everybody, welcome to Dad Talk Today. We got an exciting episode lined up for you. Kevin Hickey, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing good, man. Happy Monday. How are you doing?
Doing all right, guys. So we got our Q&A session going on tonight. If you want to write your questions to Kevin down in the comments, I'll bring them to him. Nothing about this creates a client-attorney relationship. It's not to be used as legal advice in court, but you are talking to a professional. With that said, Kevin, any exciting topics you've got that's came up?
I don't know about exciting. There's one that keeps kind of popping up, and I guess I'll spring this on you a little bit. Britney Spears' situation has really been in the headlines a lot, and it's really divided people. I mean, she's got some real fans, obviously, from way back, and some people are on her side, some are not. I think there's a lot of not really understanding the situation, and one thing you have to keep in mind is what you see in the press, as we know, I mean, is not always true, and a lot of times isn't completely accurate. You get part of the information, sometimes bad information, other times. But anyway, she has this conservatorship over her, where they have to monitor her money, they have to monitor what she does with her children, and a lot of people are upset about that, but judges take those things very seriously. And if they think the children are in any kind of danger or harm, or it's not a real wholesome environment, they're going to put something like that in place. And clearly she's had some issues and probably needs help with her finances as well. And I guess that's the thing I would say is that judges really look at both sides of that, and they don't want to have to do a conservatorship or a guardianship unless it's really, really needed. And we're only getting part of the story.
Oh, yeah, I got you, man. And for anybody that's not completely aware of what a conservatorship is and what it does, could you explain that for them?
Yes, that is usually, it can either be an attorney, it can be a family member, which oftentimes happens. And that is basically you're overseeing somebody's affairs. You're overseeing their money. You're overseeing what they do health-wise, because they've had some kind of mental issue, or for some other reason, they're what we call incapacitated. They just aren't able to take care of their own affairs. And sometimes people will start to show signs of either mental illness or something. And I think that's what happened in Britney's case. And so they got a conservatorship over her, somebody that is rational and can take care of her affairs.
Yeah. So guys, if you got any questions, put them down in the comments and I'll bring in McKevin. But let's talk about this a little bit more here for a second. Could you imagine being Britney Spears? I think she was in the spotlight ever since she was a little child. Does anybody remember the show Star Search? We're kind of telling our age here a little bit.
Yeah. I remember Star Search.
But I think even her and Justin Timberlake was on there, but she had been in the spotlight ever since she was a young child. All she knew was fame and the big screen. She gets up, she gets this money. Everybody's watching her. I remember where she shaved her head bald and everything. From what I'm told in the conservatorship, I believe it's her dad that has control over it.
I believe so. And that's where it's starting to divide some people, because some people feel like he might be abusing that power, taking her money, spending it on things maybe for himself personally or for other things that she wouldn't really want. But, the courts have to kind of monitor that. And usually a conservator has to report back to the court, and they provide an accounting of what they're spending the money on so that the court can keep tabs on it. So there are stopgaps that are usually in place on something like that.
So, is there something that Britney can do to actually take that back to court to regain control over that?
Well, normally, and I actually got hired in this capacity several years ago on a case. If you have a guardianship, then the person you have guardianship over is called the ward. So I don't know what they use in California. They've got conservatorship. And then I don't know if she's considered the ward, the person that has conservatorship over her or not. But that person usually has an attorney. And I was hired to represent the ward, or in this situation, it would have been Britney Spears. And so they usually have their own attorney to kind of look out for their interests. It's like, look, we know this conservatorship's needed, but Britney has things that she's wanting. She wants to see her kids. She's wanting to spend money on such and such. And so she needs a legal representative to explain that to the court. And so usually they have their own attorney to kind of keep a good balance, a fair balance.
Could you imagine going out and making all this money, basically working since you was a child, and then somebody being over your money and your affairs?
It would be very hard, but you also think about, I've seen some of her stuff online. I don't know if you've really seen it, but there's just a lot of stuff she will do that she just doesn't seem right. And I hope she's doing better and getting better. But, when someone gets fame and that kind of money at such a young age, you can't imagine the pressures that puts on them and how it changes their view of just day-to-day living. To be able to have money to do whatever you want to do any minute of any day at that age, even for adults, it's hard a lot of times to manage those stressors. But for someone that young to immediately get that kind of fame and that kind of money, and grow up in that world, it's hard. Fame is great, but there's a lot of it that's not.
Oh, absolutely. Lisa Brees Link said she also wants to be a mom again, but she can't even take out her birth control. Truly unreal. No disrespect. This is attorney speaking, not familiar with the California corruption. I think the corruption in California, we see what goes on even in the Johnny Depp case. Are you familiar with that one, Kevin?
It's been a while since I read about it.
Yes. We'll dip down in there. We got a few questions coming in. So guys, sure, if you got some questions, put it down in the comments and we'll continue that here in a little bit. Brianna Harper said, we have court this month on the 25th. We are going for 50-50 custody. The other party is going for only 1 week in a month for dad in Florida and have half a day with the judge. What are the chances it will be just this hearing and then done, or is it likely we will have more dates to close this out?
Well, Brianna, if this is your final hearing, then that's what it should be. It should be the last hearing that you've got. Sometimes they have temporary hearings, but a half day is usually a signal to me that it's a final hearing. Temporary hearings are only usually about 30 minutes, sometimes an hour. But a half day sounds like a final hearing, and that's supposed to be when you decide everything and the judge makes a ruling, and that's closes out the case.
Yeah. Mr. Tony Lombardi said, I haven't seen my daughters in 3 years, and today I got a lawyer letter demanding a third of my daughter's college cost of attendance. I'd be happy to pay if I was a dad, but I'm not a bank. Mom won't let me see the kids, and the court won't hold her in contempt. Is there any advice you could give to Tony, Kevin?
Well, there's some. I'd need a little more information. I don't know if he's already divorced. I don't know if he has a court order that's in place that both sides are supposed to be following. He got this letter from the attorney. I'm assuming that's attorney for her, asking for a third of the college costs. In Arkansas, child support ends when the child turns 18 or graduates from high school, whichever is later. So if you want it to go on into college, that usually has to be by agreement. So I'm wondering if Tony entered into an agreement to do that. And if that's the case, then her attorney may be writing the letter to say, hey, this is what you got to pay. But if it's something new, I just kind of need to know that information.
Yeah, Tony, tell us about it, man. I'm actually interested, and I see the picture with your kids down there. Definitely look like a loving father. That reminds me of a case. I don't know if you read up on this one, Kevin. It was going nuts a couple of months ago. The father had not been able to see his daughter, and he was paying child support to the tune of $800 a month and did it for years, even though he wasn't seeing his daughter. His last child support came in the form of 80,000 pennies that he dumped in his ex's backyard.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
And for the most part, they just made this guy look like the most cruel person on the face of this earth, which may not have been the smartest idea to go and dump those pennies down there. Right. But seeing the things that we see, it makes you wonder, like, there might be a story behind this that we don't know.
That's true. And in Tony's situation, before we leave that, always remember, and I think most states are this way, I know Arkansas is, any kind of support you're paying and your time with your children, those are two different things. And many, many times, moms and dads too, sometimes whoever has custody will try to hold that payment over the head of the other parent and say, well, you can come see the kids if you know, I'm going to dangle them out here. You can come see them if you pay your child support or if you pay for this or that. Those are two separate things. And just because you've gotten behind on child support or something like that, you do not lose your visitation rights. So if that's what's going on, and it sounds like Tony's got a little bit of that going on, you need to talk to an attorney about it in your state.
Yeah, man. Tony said, I paid $1,600 a month for 7 years, never missed, no agreement. I'm divorced, supposed to have 50-50, but she has never followed the decree. It sounds like something he needs to take back to court.
Absolutely. She's violating the decree. She's in contempt, and you need to get an attorney and go back to court. In those situations, when we represent somebody, we're always asking for our attorney's fees to be paid because, you know, we just argue to the judge, look, judge, if it's Tony's case, Tony shouldn't even be here. He should be getting time with his kids, but mom's refusing to do that for no good reason. So she should have to pay his attorney's fees for making me come here and argue for him.
And that's the cruel thing about it. I mean, they can keep your child away. They got this. You're doing everything you're supposed to. And in that time that the child is not being able to see dad, there's no telling what the ex is putting in the head, you know, and it just makes the child where they want nothing to do with the father.
That's right. That's time you can't, time is the one thing you can't get back. I mean, once today, this Monday is gone, I mean, it's gone forever.
Tony, so sorry to hear that, my man. If you got any questions for us, if we can help you out in any way, let us know. We got one in here from Terrence Carrick. He said, what can you do with county courts that turn a blind eye to a parent going against visitation in the final decree and files false charges of the other parent sexually assaulting the child and evening being cleared by CPS of charges still refuses to allow the child to do visitations? When in front of the judge, you lose education and medical rights, but nothing is done to the mother for her actions. By the way, Texas courts.
Terrence, man, that's an issue that Eric and I deal with on a consistent basis. And, you know, my firm handles a lot of high conflict custody cases that usually deal with false allegations of abuse. Many times it's false sexual abuse allegations. And it's something that it's the nuclear bomb. It's the nuclear bomb, as we've talked about before, the silver bullet. It's hard to fight those cases. And even it sounds like you got cleared by CPS, which is great. Hopefully you've gotten them out of your life. But you've got to go on the offensive and start turning that narrative around. Because if you don't, then the judge, as the weeks and months go on in your case, is going to have that in their mind that you've done this, and that they've got to really be careful about having the children be around you. So you and your attorney have got to get that narrative turned around. You may want to get a psychosexual assessment done. There's one or two experts that we use that are the best in the country, and they will put an assessment together that, and they'll testify for you in court, showing that you don't have any propensity to act in the ways that your ex is saying. And you've just got to get that narrative turned around, get witnesses, any evidence you can get to show that it's just not true.
Yeah. Speaking of that psychosexual assessment, that's something that John Mast did, correct?
Absolutely. And he passed it with flying colors. And in my opinion, that's still a big part of why he ended up being exonerated.
Yeah. I'm so sorry, man. I don't, we should have some, the documentary coming on later on this month, guys. I tell you, we are working hard to get that out. We still got to keep John's story out there. Please make sure you get the word out on that. Mr. Jonathan Kendall wanted to know if he could get your services. Kevin, Jonathan, get with me later on, and I will forward that over to Kevin. I know, Kevin, if anybody was wanting to get your services, how would they get in touch with you?
Our phone number is 479-434-2414. We're located in Arkansas, but I take high conflict custody cases all over the country. You can also find us at our website, www.kevinhickeylaw.com. We have a ton of information on there about false abuse allegations, CPS, DHS, custody cases, all kinds of information that you can read on your own and get educated on a lot of these issues. Parental alienation, we have all of that on there.
So, guys, I see some more questions I'm about to get to him, but going back to Terrence, he was talking about this being in Texas courts. I'm really shocked at the cases that I've been seeing coming out of Texas as of late. I was talking to you a little bit before we got on the younger case that's going on right now with Save James. They've been trying to gender transition his son since he was 7. He is now 9. Courts have gave full custody back to mom, put a gag order on him where he can't talk. Now he's having to pay for supervised visitations. I believe the fees are up to $1.3 million.
Right.
And this is a father, Kevin, again, that's fighting against this transition of a 9-year-old. And he's the one that's been gagged and has to have supervised visits. I am so shocked at what's going on in Texas. Some of the worst cases I've seen in the country right now are going on in that state.
If you can get, and maybe we can try to get it, but if you can get a copy of that ruling from the judge, the actual order, maybe we can talk about that on here next time I'm on and kind of go through it. And because we may not agree with it, and even after we read it, we may not agree with it, but we can at least go through and I can explain the rationale that the judge was thinking and why they decided the way they did. I know there's a lot of constitutional and privacy issues involved when they have the gender transition cases. So it'd be interesting to read that.
I believe that's going to become much more of a popular thing. You're going to start seeing pop up. And
you're exactly right. No, it is. It is.
Yeah. All right. We got a 2-parter right here from Maddox Lee on YouTube. He said, Part 1, my child's mother has violated the order that has only been in place for maybe 2 months several times. My lawyer reached out to hers to get her to comply. She continues to violate. What do I do? If the next step is court, what can I expect to happen?
Okay, I want to ask answer part one first, and your attorney takes the approach that I do, which is I reach out to the other attorney first and say, look, we're only 2 months into this. We just either agreed to all this or the judge decided it. Regardless, there's an order in place telling both of these people what to do, and your client's already not following it. I don't want to waste my client's attorney's fees. I don't want to go back to court and drag this out. Will you please talk to your client and get her to comply? So I like what your attorney did first there, which is reaching out to the other attorney, because a lot of times that'll nip it in the bud and it saves both sides a lot of fees and frustration. But going to the last part, what if she continues to violate? What are you going to do? You got to go back to court. That's all you can do. And I know a lot of people get frustrated with that answer, but that's the system we've got. And your attorney needs to get an ever increasing punishment for mom the more she continues to not follow the order. The first time the judge just may point at her and say, don't do that again. But you've got to keep a record and you've got to keep getting an increasing level of punishment if she continues to violate it. And what the words I use when I'm in court on those kinds of cases is I tell the judge, nothing is getting this lady's attention. You've ordered this. My guy's complying. She's not. You've already warned her once. Something's got to be done because she's not complying with it. So that's what you got to do. You just got to make it plain that you are following the order and she's not.
Yeah. We got a comment in here from Mr. Arnold Buys. He said, my kids are over 21 years old and they both work. I am on disability, barely making it. And the mother of my adult kids has me on child support for an arrearage from when they were 3 and 5 years old. They are taking half of my disability check while I'm at physical therapy for the past 3 years, surviving on $500 a month. They've been taking my disability, and now that she's taken my money, she's alienated my kids from me. Any advice you could give to him, Kevin?
Yeah, and Arnold, if you can follow up on it with a comment on that, is that Social Security disability? Because I did not think that they could take that. I'm wondering if that's a private disability carrier or if that's state. But if you can let us know that, yeah, that's pretty harsh. I mean, something needs to be put in front of the judge to let him know the financial hardships you're having, and that's just, you're doing all you can. That's just not fair.
Yeah, man. I have heard of them taking like military disability. I mean, they count that as income. I've heard of a few people that's happened with.
Well, that's the thing, and there's a little bit of a difference there. They'll count it as income, and then they can calculate. Yeah, VA disability they can, and then they'll calculate a child support off that. He's saying they're taking part of his disability check. Usually, if it's Social Security disability, you can put your kids on. They get a separate check, and a lot of times that covers child support. At least that's how we handle it in Arkansas. But some people, even though they're disabled, can make a little bit of income and they can get taxed. They can get child support put on that. So anyway, that's the things he probably needs to look at.
Yeah. Timmy Wyndham said, what can I do if my second attorney won't push to get a court date? Keep allowing opposing counsel to cancel court dates and rescheduling. My daughter is 2, and I've only been to court once in the beginning, which was to get legitimized.
I'd need to know more, Timmy, about what's going on as to why the court or the hearing keeps getting continued. A lot of times we have very good reasons. There's evidence that we want that we don't have yet. The other side has asked for it. And, if the other side asks for a continuance, unless there's just a real reason I don't want to agree to it, I will normally agree to it, especially if we're pretty far out from when the hearing is. And the reason for that is 2 months from after that, you and I might need a continuance. And I don't want that attorney to say, well, I tried to get one before and you wouldn't do it. So attorneys usually try to work with each other on that kind of stuff, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to need a continuance at some point, and you want the attorney to give you the same benefit.
Yep. Tony Lombardi said, can I reach out to Kevin? He may know someone in Iowa. I have the same issue, psychosexual. I'll do that.
Yeah, and if he wants, what was his name again? Was that Tony?
That was Tony, and then you got another guy down here, Mr. Terrence Carrick. He was wanting your information too. So, okay,
yeah, we will. Tony, if you get with me, I'll give you the name of the person, one of the primary guy we use for psychosexual assessments, and maybe you can get hooked up with him.
Yep. Oz Ann said, my children's mother is telling her lawyer that our 4-year-old child has anxiety because of me. That's why he's scared of loud noises. I think he has a mild form of autism, but his mother, with final medical decision, refuses to let me get him help. She is actually trying to bring this accusation to court. Doesn't she need proof that I am supposedly the cause of his anxiety?
Yes. Many times children that age will have anxiety over many things. Sometimes it's just a visitation exchange, because they're changing homes for the week or for a few days or whatever it is. A 4-year-old, it's very hard because you're dealing with very limited vocabulary and very limited age. They just don't have a lot of experience. And as parents, just as any adult, you can listen to a child and you think you know what they're saying, but a lot of times you don't, because they're using words in the wrong way. And it's hard to determine really what they're talking about or what they're wanting or what they're trying to tell you. So absolutely. And if I'm representing you in that case, that's what I'm going to be telling the judge is, Judge, yeah, we agree this child's showing some anxiety, but how can you show that that's coming from dad or mom? You've got to be able to show the source of that before you can hold one of those parents accountable. And just on that, autism, I haven't read research on that super recently, but a lot of times when kids are that young, it's very hard to diagnose them with autism. I mean, they can sometimes do it, but a lot of times if it's very mild, it's kind of hard to diagnose until they're a little older.
Yeah. What are some, well, I know you're not a doctor, but what are some of the signs of autism, Kevin? I know like being a loner, sometimes really obsessive with a small certain amount of things.
That's it. And yeah, there's so many things that are beyond my comprehension, but and I don't know the ages when they can really start seeing. I think that doctors will start seeing signs of things like, yeah, they kind of are alone, or some won't talk hardly at all. Some of there's some educational issues with how they process information that they'll sometimes talk about. So there's all kinds of signs.
Yeah. Dave Murray said, if a judge does not provide any notice of trial hearing, but randomly has one, does that final order have any jurisdiction over the party?
Yeah, I don't know how that. Yeah, no, that's a direct due process violation. You've got to be given notice of the trial, especially the final trial. And yeah, if that was not done, then I don't see how there's any jurisdiction. Now, sometimes we get what's called an ex parte order, which is an emergency order that the judge will sign when the other party's not present, but it's temporary. It'll say, I'm signing this order, giving dad custody, but we're setting this for hearing in 4 days. And then the other parent has to be served with that. When we go to a hearing, if there's any issue with service of any party that's supposed to be there, the judges usually, that's the first thing they bring up. They'll ask the attorney, did you notify Mr. Murray? Did you notify so-and-so? And if that wasn't done, then I don't see how an order can be put in place that's going to be that would survive an appeal.
Yeah. Denal Rob on YouTube said, I'm in North Dakota. I need to know what needs to be filed to remove a BS sup visa order with no requirements listed to do so until the courts order otherwise.
That sounds like, I think that's a type of like a visa immigration issue.
That's my first time hearing it, to be honest with you.
To move a BS. Yeah, I think that's a designation for a visa, and that's out of my realm. I'm just not competent in the immigration stuff.
Yep. Stephen Wilner said, keep it up, Eric. Kevin, if the judge is an attorney had to pay, would that help? Triggering me with the history and a bunch of other stuff. Thanks, Kevin and Eric, but it's going on way too long. Hey, man, dude, we understand, and that's why we're on here, just trying to provide a little relief for people that don't know which way to turn. Sometimes I think navigating the family law system, Kevin, is like speaking another language.
It is, and I want to bring up something I meant to bring up a few minutes ago before I forget. Eric and I, and we talked about this last time I was on, are really, it's a real privilege, and I know Eric feels the same way, to serve on the John Mast Foundation. And guys, it's not up and running yet, but we're working hard on it. Every week we're having meetings on it. It's going to be a resource for all of you. Anyone that's having parental alienation issues or conflict, high conflict custody problems, anything like that. This website's going to be about John and about his life, and really was part of a mission that he was starting on before he died. And it's going to be a great resource for people, and we're really excited about it. And we'll give you all that information once it's up and running.
Yeah, I found that video that I didn't even know I had when I was looking for footage for the documentary. And it was just me and John talking back and forth. And I kind of asked him some of his plans. He had talked about running for office and that he wanted to change the system, not just to go through it with his case, but he wanted to see that forward. So I know there's a lot of hard work that the Mast family's putting in there. And we'll be glad to get that to you guys as soon as we get everything squared away. I think that it's something that's been needed for a very long time.
It is very much so, and it's going to help with getting the pendulum to go back the other direction.
That's right. Billy Martin on YouTube said, my wife abandoned my son and I in 2019. We relocated to Massachusetts, or is it Maine?
I think that's
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Yeah. She is still in Texas. Is it hard to collect child support as many attorneys say it is?
Well, you got to find her first, but I'm going to knock on wood. We've always been able to find the other party that we're looking for. So I think, Billy, if you get the right attorney and he can find the right private investigator or national search firm, you can find her. Once you find her, you've just got to figure out what state she's in. And well, it says she's still in Texas. I don't know where your order was that gave you custody, or if there was a divorce or a paternity action or whatever, but that court still has jurisdiction. So you need to start there and get child support set. And then you should be able to register that judgment down in Texas and start collecting.
Yeah. Rich Rubio here on Facebook said, my wife has 70% custody. I believe she is doing a drug like speed, but I can't prove it. What can I do from California?
Well, that's going to be the problem. It's not so much the truth of what's going on. It's what you can prove in court. And there's got to be a way you're going to have to find a way to prove it. Now, if you've got good, credible evidence, you go to an attorney, they can file for an emergency hearing. And we've had pretty good success with asking for drug testing. And the judges, if they think if you've got enough credible evidence that it's going on, that could be somebody that was either with her or knows something she said to somebody about doing drugs. You can get a drug test and show that she's positive. That'll do it. And obviously, a urine test on that day in court is good, but a hair follicle is even better. So that's the route you'd have to go.
Denal Rob on YouTube said, without money for an attorney, how can I get Doc's therapists to provide a statement by subpoena if I can't afford to pay them to testify? The content should make it unnecessary for court.
There are services. There are some states. I don't think Arkansas is one of them. I think Florida is one of them. Melissa Isaac may know more about this, but I think there are some states where you can claim indigency that if you fall below a certain level of income, you can get certain experts. I don't know about doctors and therapists, but you can get certain state money to pay for an expert for your case. That's not every state, and there's probably very limited circumstances when you could do that, or otherwise everyone would be doing it. But you might try to talk to an attorney in your state and see if there's a service like that.
Yeah. Eric, I've emailed 2 Republicans local to me and 1 Democrat. Had one great conversation with the secretary, but other than that, nothing. The political communication seemed darn near impossible. Hats off to you, bro. Thank you. Thank you. Rich Rubio, Kevin said, I'm feeling so helpless when it comes to my divorce and the custody battle. She also has 5-year restraining on me for cyber stalking her while she was having an affair. California, please help. All right. So I kind of want to touch on that. Guy feels like she was having an affair. Obviously she was. He starts going and trying to find out what's going on. And I think that's probably a common scenario of what somebody's going to do, trying to figure out what in the heck is going on right now. What are some steps that you would suggest to these guys when trying to do that so they don't end up in a situation like Rich?
The best thing you can do is, and it's usually the hardest thing to do, because the easiest thing to do is to do it yourself. And that's what you're going to try to have to avoid, really. Now, if you've got access to phones and things like that, and you can screenshot things, that's one thing. But if you're separated or whatever, you're going to start running into problems, maybe even with the police. If you start cyber stalking or whatever else, you need to get a private investigator. Private investigators are licensed by the state. Now, there's limitations to what they can do, but that's the place to start. If you've got an attorney, obviously get your attorney on board with that. But a private investigator can legally follow somebody. They can take photos. They can do all kinds of things that would be considered stalking if you were doing them. That's why they have to go through the state and get a license. So that's probably your best, at least your starting point.
Now, do you think if somebody actually finds evidence like, hey, she was having an affair, hey, she was doing these things, but he was looking, he wanted to know what was going on, does the court usually take that into consideration? Hey, this was actually going on, and that's why he was doing this investigation work on his own?
I would say that an affair mattered 40 or 50 years ago much more than it does now.
Yeah.
But if you can show that it's somehow affecting that parent's ability to take care of the children, that's when you're going to get the court's attention. If this person's more interested in going, having an affair and being gone and leaving the kids and not being with them on their time, that will get a judge's attention.
How come you think that extramarital affairs are not, they hold no weight in court anymore?
Well, I wouldn't go to say all the way no weight, but they're not a huge smoking gun anymore. I think it's just become, I don't know if I'd say more common, but maybe it's just more seen. You've got social media now. It's just, again, I don't know that it's more prevalent, but it seems like more people there's more evidence of it now, more ways to find out.
Yeah. Last time I was reading up statistics, I want to say they said, the majority of divorces, that's what causes it.
It's a big factor. Definitely that and finances are two of the biggies.
Yeah. Brian Stark said, my son ages out 18 days prior to the RO silver bullet ends. What applies, RO or aged out? I want to say he's meaning restraining order.
Maybe.
Brian, re-clarify that for me. I got a couple of questions down here. I promise you we'll get right back to it.
Yeah.
Alan Lee said, I am a stepdad of 4 kids. My wife's ex-boyfriend had filed their taxes in 2019 and had been getting all the kids' stimulus checks. We have a court-ordered custody order and have primary custody. What can we do about the stimulus checks? People tell us small claims court is our only option.
Alan, I think you could also go back to family court. I'm trying to follow the situation there. I know you're the stepdad. Wife's ex-boyfriend filed them, so I guess he has been legally declared the father, and she's apparently has custody. If she's had custody under that court order during those times he was getting the stimulus checks, he's either committed some kind of fraud or he's claimed that he's the primary custodian or something. Those checks should not be going to him. We have filed 2 or 3 cases in the last year on stimulus checks, Eric, and we've actually been successful in getting that. Usually the other side will agree that they shouldn't have got it or whatever. And once we kind of call their bluff on it, but I think a judge is gonna look kindly on that if you have to go back to court.
He followed up on it down here. He said, yes, we have custody fully. He also claimed them in 2020 illegally, but IRS said there's nothing they can do, and I'd have to sue in local court, which makes no sense.
Alan, I think what they're saying, yeah, and it's going to take you forever with the IRS. To be honest, I think you'll get faster service in a court. You probably need to get a family lawyer, and I'd go back into the family law case because the judge can do all kinds of things to the other parent for that, including order that they pay your fees and everything else.
Yeah. Going back to Rob on YouTube, he said, I have a supervised visitation order until the court orders otherwise. What can I file before I file for modification of custody so I don't have to have supervised visits? It's been a year.
You can file some. Okay, I'm going to make an assumption here. The supervised visitations were put in place for a reason. There was some reason for the supervision. So if you can show the court, a year's gone by, if you can show the court things have changed, whatever caused the supervision, if it was drugs or some kind of other criminal situation, whatever, someone that you were dating that was not good to be around, if that situation's been alleviated, that's what I would file, is to modify it and say, Judge, look, that situation's not going on anymore. I don't want to have supervision anymore, and I think we're good to go. And that's what you need to file.
Yeah. Hey, Felix, he was saying he was adding on to a prior question. I don't see that prior question. If you could get that down there for me, and I will take it to Kevin. This one comes from Nick Sonkson. He said, if parent A claims a child on their taxes when there is a court order for parent B to claim the child, would that be considered tax fraud or a violation of the court order?
I guess my answer would be yes. It's probably both, so. Nick. Tax fraud would come into play if that if parent A did not qualify under the tax rules, usually that's over 50% is what I hear a lot and see a lot. The IRS will say if you have the child with you more than 50% of the year, you can claim them as your dependent. But you can also enter into an agreement in your divorce or paternity case, like Nick did, for one parent to claim the child, and that's what they did. So it's a definite violation of the court order, and probably I don't know if it's tax fraud, but it's certainly a violation of IRS regulations, or probably is. And I'd give the same answer I did a minute ago. I think it's faster to go to court on that than it is dealing with the IRS.
Yeah. Brian followed back up with that. He said, basically, can I call up my son on the day he ages, on his birthday, out, even though the restraining order is in place for 18 more days for the mother and my younger son?
My son on the day he ages, even though the IRS.
Okay, can he call his son up?
If it's between you and the son, I don't think you can do that. I mean, if I'm reading that right, he's saying he's got a restraining order.
Yeah, and then to be 18 days after he turns 18, if there is still a restraining order on there, man, I'd hold out.
Yeah, I would too. It's 18 days.
Yeah,
you can just explain. He's got an issue with it. Just explain. I couldn't call you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm not saying we like it, guys, but don't get yourself, in something over 18 days. Grayling Bryant said, do I have to get legitimized to see my son if me and the mom are not together, but she don't have them either legally right now? They are temporarily foster care, or to get custody of him, or to try to get him to stay with me.
All right, Grayling, if they're in foster care, I'm thinking there may be a juvenile case that's gone on. Either DHS has gotten involved or whatever. Yes, you need to get legitimized. You need to let DHS know that you're the father. I don't know if they've attempted to contact you or not, but you've got to find out if there's a lawsuit or a juvenile case going on, and you need to be in that case. You need to let DHS or CPS, whoever it is in that state, you need to let them know that you're the father and that you need to be involved in all proceedings, because they may not know about you. They know about mom, but if mom didn't tell them about you, then they may not know probably don't know who the father is. So you need to get proactive on that and get involved in the custody case.
Hey, speaking off the last time we was on here, Kevin, that's, it was one of the first times we had talked about it, that I know you said it was called something different in your state, but the Responsible Fatherhood Registry. What did you say?
Putative Father Registry is what it is in Arkansas. And Grayling, you can probably look up something like that in your state. It may be a little bit late for that. And I know it may be hard because juvenile cases are usually, they won't give that information out to the public. It might be kind of hard for you to figure out what the case number is and what's going on, but ask around, get a lawyer, something, and get involved in that case so they'll know who you are, and that yes, they can actually establish paternity for you too through that case. So that's something you need to do.
He said they have, and I've been trying to talk to him, and I don't have the cash on hand. They said it would cost $500 to get them legitimized. Is there any other way to get it without paying that much?
It depends on what your income level is. If you can get in the juvenile case, they will many times, if you're of indigency level, they'll appoint an attorney for you. And they will also, that's what I was saying too, you won't have to pay for them to establish paternity. They can do that as part of that case. So try to find out what that case is. Go to court on your own. I mean, if there's a juvenile case going on, many times there are 5, 6, 7, 8 hearings or more. There's review hearings and all that stuff. So get in there as soon as you can, even if you have to go by yourself, and tell the judge who you are. See if you qualify for an attorney to be appointed, and just go from there.
Yeah. Grayland said, okay, thank you so much. Appreciate you all having this online. It helps a lot of people. Thank you so much. Dude, this is what we do it for. What you just said, that's what we do it for, man. And that lets us know, what we're doing is actually helping someone out there. But that fatherhood registry, I can tell you, I had a buddy that had a similar case. Look up Christopher Emanuel. He was in Aiken, South Carolina, but he had put himself on that fatherhood registry, and they actually put his child in foster care. I mean, it was about to be adopted. He's one of the only ones I know that won his child back after they had been adopted, but it was because he had himself on that registry. And if you can't pay that money right this second, or you're trying to save up for it, it could definitely save it, because you're saying, hey, I am the father. You're not running from it.
Let's just briefly explain the importance of that list. Every state has a registry for fathers that think they may be or for guys that think they may be the father of a child. Either the mom took off, or you think she's pregnant, or heard she's pregnant, but she won't talk to you. Every state has a list that you can get on. And like I said, in Arkansas, it's called a putative father registry. I think Eric said in other states, or his state, it's responsible father registry, or something like that. The purpose of that list, when someone comes to me and says they want to give their child up for adoption, or we're adopting a child, I have to contact that list in whatever state that child's coming from and make sure there's not a father on that list. If you've signed up, that attorney is going to see that you're saying you're the father. Well, then you have to get notice. You get an opportunity to come to the hearing and everything else, and that adoption can't go through without you. So that's why it's so important to get on that list.
Yep. And I don't know about in your area. I know, like here in my area, we got something called legitimation station. It's for fathers that doesn't have that much money, and they'll actually step in and help you with that legitimation. You know,
that's a great, our state doesn't have it, but man, that's a great service, because it's really needed. It really is. A lot of people don't have the money for that.
And, you know, I think it's also important to note too, Graylin, just because of legitimation, I don't think that has anything to do with custody, does it, Kevin?
No, that's you've got to be declared the father, legally the father first, and then they can start considering you for visitation and custody and all kinds of things. So that's the first step. You're on the right track.
That's it. Billy Martin said, thank you for doing this. I am glad I found you. There is no order in place. I found my wife in Texas. Do you handle cases in Texas, or can you suggest an attorney in North Texas?
Yes, possibly. Message me or send me an email at Kevin at kevinhickeylaw.com, and I'll see if I can find. So I do know someone. If it's North Texas, if you mean by Dallas or further north, yes, I've got one or two that you could talk to there.
Yeah. Felix Santos said, I'm a father of 2 boys, 13 and 15 years old. I pay $550 per our decree. Can the DA come back at me in arrears if I'm not working? My unemployment is being garnished right now.
If there was a period of time that you didn't pay, it's possible. Most DAs, and that's district attorney, in some places they're called prosecuting attorneys. It's the same thing. They enforce the criminal laws. Every state has laws on the books about not paying your child support. And when it gets to a certain level, it's a misdemeanor, and then it can get all the way up to a pretty serious felony. There's guys in prison that have not paid child support. But usually if it's a lower amount and it just happened once or twice, and now they're garnishing your unemployment, a prosecuting attorney, DA, at least my experience has been, they're not going to jump all over a case like that unless you have a real history of not paying, or it's been a long time since you paid, and there's a big history there. Don't play around with it. Make sure something's going in, and it sounds like it is, since the unemployment's being garnished. But I don't think the DA is going to jump all over that one.
Yeah. Debbie Ann said, sending out my prayer to these fathers. Thank you for that, Debbie, and thank you for being here and support. And you know, people get to hear what these guys are going through. I mean, this is very real. These messages, I'm telling you guys, my inbox does not stop. It's ding, 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 ding of these guys that are going through this kind of stuff. And a lot of these guys are going through situations people can only imagine. And it's what we're here for, you guys. Susan O'Neill Thomas said, have you ever seen attorneys in a divorce case subpoena laptops and cell phones? Every day.
Yes, they can. And we call it a mirror image. We will ask for cell phones or laptops to be produced, and they have to be sent to professionals that handle IT and different kinds of hardware and things like that are professionals and know what they're doing. And we ask them to create what's called a mirror image of what's on that file so we can see what's on it. And we don't do it every day. It's not too often we have to do something like that. But yes, it happens. The vast majority of what we get either from computers or cell phones is screenshots, different things that we're seeing, or they took a picture of something that was on the computer or whatever. But screenshots are a lot of what we use.
Yeah. Dave Murray said, Kevin, how hard is it to get a judicial grievance filed properly?
Well, to get it filed properly, every state has a website for oversight of judges. And this is very different. You know, we get a lot of questions about suing a judge. This is just filing a grievance against a judge, a complaint. You can do that. Every state has a different agency, committee, whatever, and they all have different names. But if you Google your state and how do I file a complaint against a judge, you should be sent to the portion of that state's website, the bar or whatever it is, and they'll tell you, and usually have online forms you can fill out for that kind of thing.
Yeah. Rich Rubio said, how do I respond to being served divorce papers at work? I'm in California. That's got to be a rough one.
Oh, divorce paperwork. Yeah. Well, you've just got to file an answer. And Rich, if there's any way possible, you can go talk to an attorney. That's what you need to do. If you don't, be sure and look at the time frame on there. There should be a summons attached to it that'll tell you how long you've got to respond. If you don't respond in that time frame, your spouse can go forward without you. Her and her attorney can go forward without you and get a default. So you don't want that to happen. So try to talk to an attorney if you can.
You know, I can't talk, from a legal perspective, but how hard does that got to be served divorce papers at work? It's hard enough to go through it. And, I made a post about a week ago. I had wrote what that process was like. I remember when I was going through my divorce, it don't just happen to you at home. You take that with you everywhere you go. And you're sitting here trying your best to perform at work, do the task at hand. You get behind, you're not sleeping, you're not eating. It just seems like it's adding insult to injury, man. And I've been there.
Well, when you file a lawsuit, that's one thing, but then you've got to serve it. You've got to it goes back to this notice requirement we were talking about on the hearing before. You've got to notify the other person that you have now filed this lawsuit against them. So, and every state has rules on how you can serve that person with paperwork. And every time we have a case like that we filed, we talk with the client about how do we want to serve this to them? How do we want to get it to your spouse? We want to do it as non-confrontationally as we can. So we will either have a process server call the person and say, hey, can I meet you at Walmart parking lot or whatever and give you these papers, or can I come by where you're living or whatever? We try to do that. Now, if someone starts avoiding us intentionally, we're going to try to get them served where we can, but it is never our first option to try to go to work to serve somebody. There's no sense embarrassing someone like that. There's no reason for it.
Yep. Graylin said, I hope you all continue to do what you're doing. I hope it gets bigger than what it is right now, because this is really helping. Glad to hear that, my man. Timmy Wyndham said, how can they lock you up for not paying child support when the Constitution is supposed to protect you from being locked up to collect a debt? They justify it by saying you're breaking a court order, yet if you don't pay it, they put it against your credit.
That you kind of answered your own question there, Timmy, and I know it doesn't sound right, but what you've done is violate a court order. So they don't see it so much as a debt from a retailer or something, or a credit card that you didn't pay. They see it as child support that was court ordered and you didn't pay it. So since you violated a court order, that's why you're going to jail, not so much because they're trying to collect a debt. I know it sounds like lawyer speak or lawyers doing what lawyers do, but that's kind of the rationale.
Yeah. Got a little bit of a long one. This one's from Davey Ernest. He said, question about jurisdiction. Mother of child is in military. They live 3 states in 4 years and currently Washington state. but I fly to pick her up and bring her back home to me every other month and even pay child support on the months when I have her. She was granted custody when my child was a few months old back 3 states ago, but my child has never lived in any state for more than a couple of consecutive months at a time. At this rate, my child will live in many states. The question I have is, shouldn't my state have jurisdiction, seeing as it's the common factor if we went into a custody battle? My child is 4.
Davey, this is an excellent question, and I'm not going to have a real good answer for you. I've had 2 or 3 of these in the last several years, and jurisdiction always comes up. There's a thing called the UCCJEA. It's UCCJEA. It's a Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction Enforcement Act. And it's a federal law that controls jurisdiction in situations like what you've got. And this happens a lot, Eric, with military families. You know, there's a military parent that's moving a lot. A lot of states have statutes, laws in place that say you can't really discriminate against someone because they're in the military or hold that against them because they're having to move. It gets a little convoluted, but Davey, this is a longer answer than you're probably wanting, but your state may have jurisdiction. You need to go talk to an attorney in your state. There are a lot of rules under that UCCJEA as to where the home state started. So wherever your case started, 9 times out of 10 still has jurisdiction for now. But if none of you are living in that state anymore, then it may be time to move it, and the judge will need to move it to a state that's more appropriate. But this comes up a lot.
Yeah. Rich said, my wife has laughed in my face about being able to keep the house for 3 years during the divorce process. Is there any way I could get her to sell the house so I too will be able to have a place for my kids?
Yeah. Yes, Rich. And I think California is a community property state, if I remember right, which is a little different than Arkansas. But yes, if you're on that house with her, that house is half yours and half hers. And many times that's what the judges will do, is just order that it be sold, and then you split the proceeds from it. So, and I hate that it's taken 3 years. I don't know what all is going on there, but hopefully that's going to get wrapped up for you.
Yeah. It's something, Melissa Isaac has the dad's house for these guys that don't have anywhere to spend time with their kids. They stay there for free. There's resources out there, guys. You just got to search around and stuff for it. Not saying, I see what you're saying. You shouldn't have to go through any of that in the first place, but, hopefully we can get some more of this stuff going out for you. We're definitely out there trying. Michael O. Hatfield said ADA 42 USC 12101-2. These guys remember these numbers, man.
That's a federal statute. USC is the United States Code.
I tell you, he said, states if a person is accused of mental instability, being crazy, etc., they are immediately a part of a protected class, regarded as, and the burden of proof then shifts to accuser. Have you heard of this and or used it effectively?
I'll answer the last part first. I have not used that effectively. I don't know that I've heard of it. I can tell you that all of that information, if they are unstable, they're having mental issues, all of that stuff are things you would use in your custody case to show that there's there's some mental instability there that's not healthy for these children to be around. Now, you've got that the burden of proof shifts to the accuser. I don't know if he's saying someone's alleging that the other person is unstable or what, but I don't think that's going to come into play in a family law case if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, he said ADA Part 2 Elliott versus Pearson goes on to state a judge ignoring this would nullify judgment's orders, if I'm reading it correctly.
You may be right, Michael. You've got a federal statute there, and that phrase in that Elliott versus Pearson case, that may apply to federal law, so it may not trickle all the way down to family law in a state court case. But I'd have to read it to see.
Yeah. Felix said, I received a letter from the DA saying that they will use my information against me if I'm going to apply for a new lease or even buying a new vehicle. How can I provide my kids for a better, he said, leaving, I think, for a better life?
I don't know why they'd use that information against him if he's applying for something. Maybe they just meant if they came after him criminally, that would affect his ability to get I'm not sure on that.
Yeah. Well, wow, man, we saw a lot of new voices and new faces here tonight, guys. I'm not glad you're here. I wish you didn't have to use this, but if you're going to be anywhere, I'm glad you're here, and hopefully this has helped you in some way. We do these every other week, where Kevin comes and answers your questions. Kevin, we had quite a few people wanting to get in touch with you tonight. If they wanted to get in touch with you to use your services, where could they do so?
You can find us online at www.kevinhickeylaw.com. That's all one word, kevinhickeylaw.com. You can call our office, 479-434-2414. But if you go to the website, you'll see a ton of information about parental alienation, custody cases, all kinds of divorce issues, CPS, DHS cases, tons of info. Pretty much anything to do with family law, custody, or DHS CPS cases, you'll find it on there.
Yeah. Just trying to make sure we get to all of them. We have one more question come in. I'm going to run to you. It says Tommy Dingley. He said, what can I do when a judge violated the UCC JEA guidelines stating the child must remain in the custody of the parent where the child spends the majority of overnight stays? My son was in my custody and spent all overnights with me, and the judge gave the mother full custody at the hearing.
Well, the UCC JEA, it doesn't really go to the heart of the custody factors that a judge looks at as to who should get custody. It usually just deals with jurisdiction. So you may want to talk to your attorney on that one. You may need to appeal that. If the UCC JEA was violated, then you've got a jurisdiction issue right from the very beginning. And well, I won't go into why, but that can nullify that order if there was a problem with jurisdiction from the beginning. That can throw the whole order out, but you're going to have to appeal it, and that's going to be months down the line before you get that answer.
Yep. Michael Hatfield said, can you give him the website one more time, please?
Yes, it's kevinhickeylaw.com, and as soon as we're done, Eric, I'll go into the comments and put my info on there.
All right. Sounds good. Well, Kevin, I appreciate it, my man. And like you said, guys, we got this foundation coming out. Hopefully we'll have some more information coming on that soon. And I'm sure we will be pushing it very hard. But until then, man, I appreciate all your hard work and coming and answering these guys' questions for us.
Same to you, man. I love it. Let's keep doing it. Keep helping people. It's great.
All right, guys, we'll see y'all next time. Hey everybody, Eric Carroll here. Thank you for tuning in to another exciting episode of Dad Talk Today. While we fight for you, we would ask for you to please help fight for us. Like, subscribe to our channel, and ring that bell so you get notifications every time we go live. There's also Super Chats, patreon.com/DadTalkToday, and other ways you can support our channel. Thank you for being here, and we will see you next time.